Accused of killing her 3 children in 2023 made her first court appearance today.
Lindsay Clancy has been hospitalized because she tried to take her own life after the killings. As her case moves closer to trial, her family is supporting her, as WBZ's Christina Rex shows us.
Lindsay Clancy is wheeled into a Plymouth courtroom in person for the first time for a hearing in her murder case.
In records, Lindsay Clancy, formerly Lindsay Musgrove, is from Wallingford. She graduated from Lyman Hall High School back in 2008 and Quinnipiac University in 2012. Now, here's what we know about the case so far. First responders arrived at the home at around 6 p.m. Tuesday after Clancy's husband called 911 reporting his wife had jumped out of a window. First responders discovered Clancy's 3 children unconscious with signs of trauma. 5-year-old Cora Clancy and 3-year-old Dawson Clancy died in the home, while the couple's 7-month-old son is still being treated at a hospital. Clancy herself is also still in the hospital, and her condition remains unknown. Meanwhile, the community is still in shock.
They were like so innocent and helpless.
It's almost something you can't wrap your mind around. Kids that are the same age, so it's just, it hits home. You almost don't even know what to think. It's just kind of blank for a little while.
54 minutes. That's all it took. A man leaves his house to grab some takeout and a bottle of kids' medicine. 54 minutes later, he pulls back into that same driveway, and his whole life is gone. His wife's in the backyard, broke up and barely breathing. His 3 babies in the basement, all of them gone. Now, here's the part that'll mess with you. The woman they say did it? She delivered babies for a living, no record, no history. Everybody who knew her said she lived for those kids, so make it make sense. But see, that's the thing about this one. You can't. Not easy anyway. Because this is not a case about who did it. She never denied that part. Not once. The mother in this story has basically told the whole world, yeah, it was me. So what's left? Only the hardest question there is. Not who, not how, why, and whether she was even in her own mind when it happened. And I'm telling you right now, by the time we done here, you might not be sure either way. Because the same facts, the exact same facts, tell 2 completely different stories. One side sees a sick woman drowning in plain sight. The other side sees a woman thinking clear as day, planning every step. Same evidence, 2 stories, and both of them sound true. This is the case of Lindsay Clancy. Welcome to Beyond Dark Cases, where every unsolved case has a truth buried inside it. Unexplained disappearances, unresolved crimes. We dive into cases that were forgotten and left without justice. We do not let these cases go cold. Subscribe and lock in. So let me back all the way up, because to understand how an ordinary Tuesday turns into something this dark, you gotta know who these people were before any of it happened. Lindsay and Patrick Clancy lived at 47 Summer Street in a town called Duxbury, Massachusetts. Quiet little coastal spot, about an hour south of Boston. Nice houses. The kind of street where everybody waves. Patrick worked in tech, software for Microsoft. Lindsay, she was a labor and delivery nurse over at Massachusetts General. And not just any nurse. She was the one other mothers asked for by name. The one you wanted in the room. The neighbors talked about a nice young couple. Respectful. No yelling. No drama. A dad who is real good with his kids. Anybody you asked told you the same kind of thing. And there were 3 kids. 3. Cora was the oldest. 5 years old, born on Christmas Eve. She had this laugh that just caught. The kind that made other people laugh too. She'd already decided she was going to be a doctor and a mama when she grew up, and she practiced by giving her baby brother little checkups. 5 years old, running the whole operation. Dawson was 3. Bold brown eyes, all about Paw Patrol and dinosaurs. The kind of toddler who'd share his toys before you even had to ask him to. Anybody who's raised a 3-year-old knows how rare that is. And then there was the baby, Callan, just 8 months old. A smiley, easy baby. That third child kind of baby who just goes with the flow. His daddy called him Happy Cal.
Beautiful, beautiful children. Well cared for. They were just beautiful.
Patrick later said his family was the best thing that ever happened to him. And here's what makes this whole thing hurt so bad. Almost everybody agreed with him about who Lindsay was. Her co-workers wrote letters, called her compassionate, an excellent nurse. One of them said there was nothing she loved more than those 3 kids and her husband. Another nurse, one who actually helped deliver baby Callan, said you could see the joy in Lindsay's eyes just holding him. No history of violence. No red flags anybody could point to and say, there, that's where it started. Even her husband's own mother described her the same way everybody else did. A devoted mom. A woman who'd do anything for her children. So the cracks, when they finally came, they didn't show up in her character. They showed up in her body, in her mind, and they showed up fast. Now this is where it gets complicated, because how you read what happens next depends entirely on who's doing the talking. Go back to her pregnancies for a second. After her second baby came, people around Lindsay say she went through these stretches of strange wired-up energy, cleaning everything in sight, thoughts racing a mile a minute, jumping into some fitness program and getting up at 4 a.m. to work out before the kids even opened their eyes. Her own sister said that wasn't like her. That was out of character. And then, just as quick as it came up, did it crash. All that energy gone, replaced by something heavy and dark. Up, then down. Up, then down. But it was after the third baby, after Callan, that everything just came apart. As Lindsay got close to going back to work, the anxiety hit hard, and she did what you're supposed to do. She reached out for help. Over the next few months, what the court records lay out is honestly hard to even keep up with. She got put on a whole shifting list of psychiatric medications, antidepressants, anxiety meds, sleeping pills, an antipsychotic, a mood stabilizer. By the defense's count, more than a dozen different drugs in just a few months. And by the family's account, she didn't get better. She got worse. Sleeping 3 hours a night, then barely sleeping at all. Lost 15 pounds in a month. Said she felt like a zombie. That's the word that keeps coming up. Her husband and both sets of grandparents were rotating through that house, staying for weeks at a stretch because they say she couldn't safely be left by herself, and she didn't hide none of it. That's important. She told people. In December, she checked herself into a hospital program that specializes in postpartum depression. A little while after that, she walked herself into McLean, one of the most respected psychiatric hospitals in the whole country. She called a crisis line. She went to the emergency room. By the family's telling, she sat there and told her doctor she was having intrusive thoughts. Thoughts of hurting herself, and eventually thoughts of hurting her children. She said she was scared something awful was going to happen, so sit with that. This is a woman who, the way one side tells it, did just about everything they tell you to do. She Googled her own symptoms. She told her doctors. She checked herself into not one, but 2 treatment programs. And she was a nurse. She knew that system from the inside. Oh, but here's where it splits. Because the prosecution looks at that exact same record, the same medicine, the same hospital stays, the same journals, and they see something completely different. They'll tell you she was assessed in person over and over by trained clinicians, and not one of them diagnosed her with a break from reality. At that postpartum program, she wasn't diagnosed with psychosis. She was diagnosed with anxiety. At McLean, they discharged her after 5 days with nothing on paper saying she was a danger to anybody. So now you got 2 readings of the same exact file. One says a mother was drowning right out in the open and nobody pulled her out. The other says she was struggling, yeah, but awake, aware, and in touch with what was real. That contradiction, it don't get cleaned up in the months before, it only gets sharper, because all of it, every bit of it comes down to one ordinary winter afternoon, January 24th, 2023, and by every account, it started out as normal as a day gets. That morning, Lindsay took little Cora to the pediatrician. 5-year-old had a stomach ache. Now, prosecutors make a point of this, so hold on to it. Lindsay walked into that office, talked to the receptionist, talked to the nurses, talked to the doctor, and not one single person noticed anything wrong with her. She handled the whole appointment. She handled her child, and she walked back out. No issues, no concerns. Then they came home and did the most ordinary thing in the world. Lindsay, Cora, and Dawson went out in the snow and built a snowman, and she took pictures of it, sent them to her mama, sent them to Patrick, texted back and forth, regular conversation, nothing strange in any of it. So let that sit for a second. Pediatrician in the morning, snowman in the afternoon, pictures to grandma. That's a Tuesday. That's anybody's Tuesday. But then the afternoon turns. Around 4 o'clock, Lindsay starts looking things up on her phone. Children's medicine for Cora's stomach. Then the takeout spot by a restaurant called 3V over in Plymouth. And then, right after that, she pulls up the maps. Checks how long it would take somebody to drive from their house to that restaurant and back. Now, that right there, that little search, that becomes one of the biggest fights in this whole case, and we're going to come back to it. Because one side says she was checking traffic for her husband like any wife would, and the other side says she was timing it, figuring out exactly how long he'd be gone. Moving on for now. A little before 5, she texts Patrick down in his home office, asks him about doing takeout from 3V, says she didn't cook, it's been a long day. He says yeah. She places the order, gets it right, gives the right name for pickup. The lady who took that call at the restaurant said there was nothing off about it. Voice wasn't slurred, wasn't strange. Perfectly normal call. Then she sends Patrick out. Takeout from the restaurant and a stop at the CVS for the children's medicine. 5:15. Patrick heads out the door, kisses his kids goodbye, and that clock starts running. The cameras catch him. CVS in Kingston at 5:32. While he's standing in that medicine aisle, not sure which one to grab, he calls Lindsay. She doesn't pick up, but she calls him right back. 14 seconds. She tells him exactly what to get. Normal call, he said. Only thing, felt like she was in the middle of something. And here's a detail that stops you cold. Right around that same time, Lindsay's Apple Watch logs her going up 3 flights of stairs. From the basement, up to the main floor, up to the bedroom level. And the watch never records her coming back down. Patrick pays. He's out the CVS by 5:37. Gets to the restaurant at 5:54, grabs the food, in and out in about a minute, and he's back home at 6:09. 54 minutes. Door to door, he walks in, and the first thing he notices is the quiet. Now anybody with 3 little kids knows. A house with 3 kids in it is never quiet. Somebody's always making noise, but it was silent. He calls out. Nobody answers. He calls her cell phone standing in his own house. No answer. He goes upstairs. The bedroom door is locked. He forces it open, and he sees blood on the floor by the mirror and the window standing wide open. He runs outside, and he finds Lindsay on the ground at the side of the house. She's got cuts on her wrists and her neck. She's barely conscious. He gets on the phone with 911, and somewhere in there he asks her, "Where are the kids?" She tells him, "The basement." "I'm not going to walk you through what he found down there. You don't need that, and those babies don't deserve it. Just know this. Patrick was still on the phone with 911 when he went down those stairs." And the dispatcher heard everything. They heard a father find his children, Cora, Dawson, and Callan, each one with an exercise band around their neck.
Details have been very difficult for first responders and the community at large, but especially true for the Clancy family.
It's a pretty shocking thing, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking. We can't say anything else.
It's just too much to talk about.
Right now is under police watch at a Boston hospital. The Plymouth County District Attorney issued an arrest warrant last night for the 32-year-old mother, a day after her husband called police to their home on Summer Street in Duxbury. First responders saw Lindsay on the ground outside the house after allegedly jumping out of a window in an apparent attempt to take her own life. Investigators then searched the home and found all 3 of her children unconscious in what they say were signs of severe trauma. Now, 5-year-old Cora Clancy and 3-year-old Dawson Clancy were pronounced dead at a hospital, while their 8-month-old baby brother survived. Right now, he's at Boston Children's Hospital fighting for his life.
Cora and Dawson were pronounced dead that night. Baby Callan. They got him to a children's hospital in Boston. Got his little heart beating again, but never his brain. He held on a few more days. He passed on the 27th. 3 children. Gone. In under an hour in the time it takes to pick up dinner. So now you got first responders walking into the worst scene of their careers. And you got a father standing in the wreckage of his entire family. And the first thing any investigation has got to do, the very first thing, is figure out, was this man involved? Because think about it. He's the one who was out the house. He's the one who called it in. In a case like this, you check everybody. And to their credit, they did exactly that. They pulled the surveillance footage, the CVS cameras, the restaurant cameras. They pulled his phone records, the digital trail, the timestamps, and they accounted for every single minute. When he walked in the store, when he hit the register, which way he drove, how long it took. All of it lined up exactly with what he said. Patrick Clancy was nowhere near that house when it happened. They cleared him completely. The man really did just leave to get dinner. Then there was Lindsay herself. See, she didn't get away clean. Not that she was trying to. After the children, she had cut her own wrists and neck, swallowed a heavy amount of medication, and gone out that second-story window. She survived, but the fall broke her back. Broke bones in her rib cage, left her paralyzed from about the chest down. To this day, she's in a wheelchair and she's not getting out of it. When police first tried to talk to her, she was in a hospital bed, intubated, couldn't even speak. So they gave her a whiteboard, and prosecutors say one of the very first things she wrote was a question. Do I need an attorney? Now hold up, because both sides grab that moment and pull it in opposite directions. The prosecution says, look, that's a clear mind. That's a woman thinking about protecting herself, aware of exactly what she'd done. The defense says, asking for a lawyer is your right. It's the most basic instinct there is, and it doesn't tell you a thing about whether her mind was right when those children died. And that, right there, is the whole case in one little moment. Same fact. 2 stories. Then they searched the house, and they found notebooks, journals, notes on her phone, pages and pages where Lindsay had been writing down her daily life, her kids, her medications, how she was feeling, and the prosecution says her writing was clear, precise, organized. They say in all those pages she never once wrote that she was hearing voices, never wrote that she was hallucinating, never wrote anything that sounded like a person losing touch with what was real. She knew who she was, where she was, what day it was, who she talked to. To the prosecution, that's a woman in her right mind, documenting her own life right up to the edge. But the defense looks at those same journals and says, so what? A person can be severely mentally ill and still write a grocery list, still keep a calendar. Postpartum psychosis don't always look like somebody screaming at the walls. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it hides. And if her break came on suddenly, in the moment, then of course, the weeks of journaling before it looked normal, because in those weeks, she was still hanging on. Make it make sense, right? You can't. Not yet. Because both of those things can be true at the exact same time, and that's the knot that 12 people are eventually going to have to sit down and try to untie. Lindsay Clancy was charged with 3 counts of murder and 3 counts of strangulation. She pleaded not guilty, and from the jump, her defense made one thing plain. She's not denying she killed her children. She's denying she was in her right mind when she did it. Postpartum psychosis, they say, a mind that broke. And then this case did something you don't see every day. It split into 3. There's the criminal case, but there's also 2 lawsuits. Patrick, the grieving father, the man who lost everything. He turned around and sued. Not his wife, her doctors. Wrongful death on behalf of his own children, saying the people treating Lindsay over-medicated her and missed what was right in front of them.
Her husband, Patrick, has now filed a wrongful death lawsuit claiming other people are responsible for the children's deaths.
And the timing of this is very interesting because the criminal trial is obviously coming up very soon.
In the lawsuit, Patrick Clancy says his wife sought help from a psychiatrist at Astor Mental Health named Jennifer Tufts and a nurse practitioner at South Shore Health named Rebecca Gelada. It says the 2 of them prescribed Lindsay a, quote, bevy of diverse and powerful medications, kept upping the doses, but never did blood tests to check how the medications were working. It says they rarely met with Lindsay in person.
And just 2 days later, Lindsay filed her own suit against an overlapping set of those same providers, saying they failed to catch a bipolar disorder and instead loaded her up with a cocktail of drugs that tipped her over the edge. So sit with that picture. The husband and the wife, separately in 2 different courts, telling the same basic story, that she was sick and the system failed her. Now, you'd expect a man in his position to point the finger at the woman who killed his babies. Instead, he's pointing it at her doctors. And whatever you make of that, his version lines right up with hers. Now here's the part most folks don't know, and it might be the most important thing in this whole case. In Massachusetts, when you raise this kind of defense, the burden flips. It's not on Lindsay to prove she was insane. It's on the prosecution to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that she was sane, that she was in command of her own mind when those children died. That's the heaviest burden the law's got, and it sits on the state, so the defense don't have to win the argument. They just have to leave 12 people unsure. Make them look at all of it. The medicine, the hospitals, the journals, the 54 minutes. and feel like they can't be certain. That's all it takes. And one more thing people get wrong: if a jury finds her not criminally responsible, that's not her walking out the door. It never is. A finding like that sends her into a locked psychiatric facility that may be for the rest of her life. So this was never prison or freedom. It's prison or confinement as a sick woman. 2 doors, no third one. The courtroom part, I'll keep short because it's still coming. Her trial is set for July of 2026.
We just learned today that this trial is expected to take 4 to 6 weeks. Now, jury selection starts on July 20th. In Plymouth.
She'll be wheeled in that wheelchair, paralyzed from the same night she's accused of. The judge already ruled the jury can hear the father's 911 call. Even her own lawyer admitted he couldn't keep it out. Said this, word for word. I don't have an objection to that. I have an objection to it being admitted, just because it's horrific, but legally, I have to concede that there's no basis to object. I said what I said. That's where it stands. So which is it? A mother who planned the unthinkable, or a woman the world watched drown? As I'm telling you this, nobody can answer that clean. Not the experts, not me, not you. Because the facts were never the mystery here. What those facts mean, that's the mystery, and it might stay one. But here's what doesn't move. Here's the one fixed thing in this whole story. 3 children are gone. Cora was 5. That laugh, those pretend doctor checkups, born on Christmas Eve. Dawson was 3. Bold brown eyes, dinosaurs, sharing his toys before anybody asked. Callan was 8 months, that easy, smiling baby his daddy called Happy Cal. The one who held on 2 extra days before he let go. Whatever a jury decides about their mother's mind, it doesn't bring them back. It doesn't change a thing about who they were, or what they could have grown up to be. That's the part no verdict touches. That's the part you carry out of here. 3 kids who went to sleep in a house full of love on an ordinary winter night and never got to grow up. That's where we gotta leave it for now. Because this story isn't over. It's still moving, and when that trial brings answers, we'll be right back here to break it all down. If this one stayed with you, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to Beyond Dark Cases. This is what we do. The forgotten ones, the recent ones, the cases that still don't sit right, the ones that still raise questions. Drop your take in the comments. After everything you just heard, was this a crime or was this an illness? I already know y'all got something to say, so say it. Till the next one, keep your eyes open and take care of each other.